Good afternoon, Stowe School. We've got Mike Bristow that's joined us from DHL, who's the Managing Director of Manufacturing Logistics for DHL. And he's going to talk about careers in the logistics sector and also give us an insight into how DHL has had to adapt during the COVID-19 crisis. I've already uploaded some questions for Mike, but if you want to add any more questions, please visit the Careers VLE page. Under the heading Summer Talks, you will find Mike's VLE page and just add some questions to the comment section. I'll pass them on to Mike a little bit later. So over to you, Mike, and thank you very much.
Thanks for the time, and thanks for everyone taking the time out to come and listen to a discussion around DHL. Again, this sort of platform, it's always difficult to get good interactions, and I'm sure we'll try and pace through the session today to give you plenty of time for questions and answers. I'm more than happy when everything, all the COVID stuff's all over and done with, to come in and spend some face-to-face time. If it helps anybody, anyone's interested in careers into logistics, I'm more than happy to spend time with you to have that in the time that in the future as appropriate. So just start off by the presentation. We're going to talk a little bit around DHL today, a background to it, assistants from outside the room, introduction to DHL, a bit about myself and where I got into logistics and how that's all worked for me, and then we'll spend some time talking about COVID, coronavirus, and how that has impacted the DHL business and really indeed society as a whole. So that's the objective for today. Hopefully about 20-25 minutes, 30 minutes max from presentations. You can keep all the material. All of this is out in public domain, and please use and abuse it as you see fit for your further studies. So we start with a bit around myself. So Mike Bristow. So I started in logistics right from leaving university. I did a logistics degree, and I've been in this industry ever since. And logistics degrees back when at Huddersfield University were pretty much a business degree at the time, with a lot of focus on economics and transport type strategy and logistics, as was growing at the time. I attained a first class honours, so worked hard at my university in between rugby, cricket and the usual bits and pieces that you do there, and then joined Asda as a logistics graduate. And I had seven lovely years at Asda, working through their distribution centres all around the country. I think I lived in about 7 different places during that time, but left Asda to join John Lewis as the head of transport. I had a couple of years at John Lewis, and then moved over to DHL, which was probably about, I'm guessing from memory, about 13, 14 years ago. Originally in the retail sector, I was responsible for the Boots accounts and did some work with Sainsbury's, WH Smiths, within their distribution, or parts of it. And then more recently worked in our head office, running our operations excellence team. And then before I moved into automotive, and since been made out the managing director for manufacturing logistics in the UK, so a board position in our company. So that's a bit about myself, and as I say, quite difficult on these interactions and the presentations today to get a good dialogue. But any questions and queries you have, I've seen there was some already on the board already, so please don't hesitate to ask them. I will answer every one of those myself. Depending on how many there are, it may take some time, but I will at least commit to do that. And as I said, any time that you want me to come into school and talk with you about careers and logistics, I'm more than happy to do so. So in terms of a bit around DHL as a group, there's a bit of an old slide this, but we just, in September 2019, we just celebrated our 50-year anniversary as being part of the Deutsche Post DHL group. As you can see from the slide there, that we operate in 220 countries and territories around the globe. This is an old slide, there was 380,000 people working for DHL. That's now over 550,000. It's one of the top 10 sized organisations in the globe. We deliver an awful lot of parcels, colossal amount of revenue, and numbers of vehicles and activity. And really, the linchpin of industry around the globe is supported by supply chain companies like DHL. So, origins of the makers, where the group come from. So, as I said there, 50 years ago, there was 3 guys, Adrian Dolce, Larry Hillblom, and Robert Lynn, in Hawaii, of all places. They founded DHL. That's where the DH and the L comes from. So I'm sure you've followed the usuals, doesn't have letters, drop it, lose it, but it really came from Dulcie, Hilburn and Lynn way back in 1969. Centred around the Pacific, all about getting freight movements from Asia Pacific into the seaboard and Seattle seaboard in the US. So expansions in the Pacific, then into 1974 an expansion into Europe, global reach by 1979, and then the DHL logistics part of the business, which is predominantly the express business and the global forwarding, was acquired by Deutsche Post in 2002. And then 2003 to 2007, supply chain and the global forwarding was added, e-com expanded, and then really launching in 2025, really launching launched in the 2019, the 2025 strategy, celebrating the 50th birthday. It really came from very humble origins as an organisation. And when you look at big companies and how they've grown over the time, such as Amazon and people like that, they often start from very small embryonic states and then grow significantly. If they've got a good value proposition, that means something in the industry, which certainly DHL did at the time. It's a bit of a challenge for you. So there'll be a special prize for somebody who comes back and works this one out correctly. A bit of a logistics challenge here to try and explain how the founders of DHL came up with their business and the proposition. So as you can see, from freight moving in from the Asian seaboard into the US, from Taiwan to Hawaii, give or take a few kilometres, is about 8,000 kilometres, and Hawaii into San Diego on the seaboard of the US is about 4,000 kilometres. Way back when in 1969, early 70s, a freighter would probably go about 25 kilometres an hour on average across the ocean, with a one-day stop in Hawaii, 5 days to clear customs in San Diego. A bit of a maths challenge there for you, not for today. Maybe someone will put the answer on there. You'll be able to work out how many days it took from to get product from Asia over into to the US. The big delay in all of that, as you can see, is the amount of time it took to clear customs in San Diego. And the team at DHL, so the three guys there, worked out, probably in a bar somewhere, they had a great idea and an opportunity of taking days out of that supply chain and reduce down the travel time to get from one side of Asia into the US. So that's my open challenge to everybody. Have a work out how many days it would normally take. That's your first logistics challenge on hopefully a career into logistics that somebody may take. Work out how many days it'll take. And then have a think about what the ideas that those three individuals came up with to try and cut down the travel time to get through. And the trick is something happening in Hawaii while the ships were stopping and refueling. So we'll hold it there for that, and I'm sure we'll come back to some answers at the end if we have time. So DHL, so I work as part of the contract logistics department or sector. There's 5 sectors in DHL. I think that's on a previous slide. But yeah, we go through those. So there's the five sort of business sectors. Post and parcels, that's the German Post Office. It says there what the type of activities included, like a Royal Mail in the UK, but not much bigger scale. Express is all the over international overseas freight. Anything from a small parcel to big items that get travelled around on the air freight. Global forwarding is predominantly around this. You see the sea freight containers. Supply chain, the DSC, which is the part that I work in. It's all around managing reducing complexity to our customers and supply chain services. And then e-com, and e-com has been a key big driver of scale of our business in the recent time. So they're the 5 main sectors of DHL. Into the contract logistics, the DSC, so this is the area that I'm responsible into. Again, it gives you an idea of the size and scale, 145,000. We call them as our supply chain experts, or supply chain specialists. These are people who are really well trained in supply chain for our big customers. Operate in 55 countries, loads of locations and warehouse operations, as you can see from the slides. Into the UK, so the UK is so the global DHL is split up into 5 global regions. UK is one of the regions. The regions, you'll find that in DHL most things are split up into 4 or 5 things. So the UK is then split into 5 sectors, One of those sectors being auto engineering and manufacturing. So the manufacturing logistics, and that's the bit that I'm responsible for as the board member. So in the UK, we have 40,000 people, 450 customers, 400 odd locations, 7,000 vehicles, the largest amount of vehicles of any logistics company in the UK by a considerable margin. And in my area, I have about 12,000 people in my area in the auto manufacturing sector. A bit about the industrial landscape. This is quite interesting as well, from sort of trying to explain where logistics fits in and manufacturing. And many of you may be thinking that sort of manufacturing has been on the decline in the UK for a number of years. And this is a slide we've used from some research we did into the marketplace last year. But manufacturing in the UK pre-COVID accounted for about 20% of our UK's GDP, which is a considerable, it's a massive amount of money. And interestingly, as you can see on the graph, the projection by 2025 is that UK would grow to be the 5th largest manufacturing country around the world, which is massive from a scale perspective. And an organisation such as DHL, this is great for us because our responsibility is all about moving the bits around to support the manufacturers' growth in their industry. You can see the splits in the UK's GDP, so manufacturing logistics, so manufacturing 20%, and services, so the financial services and those accounted or linked to that type of activity account for a considerable amount of our GDP, and that's where the ports of the City of London and stuff like that for our economy. Types of things that happen in manufacturing. What sort of things go included into the manufacturing base? Well, I'm not going to read all those out, but it's everything you can imagine is produced and sold in many shops. A lot of the production is held in the UK now, which is great to see, from food to motor vehicles to electrical equipment. I'm not going to read through all of those. But the overall market is estimated at around 430 billion pounds. That's a massive market in terms of the spend, especially when you consider usually logistics represents a sizable portion of that spend. Interesting as well, this is a great slide. I was really fascinated about looking when we started looking into manufacturing in the UK, about where all our potential customers are and where are the manufacturing bases in the UK. And a lot of the traditional views, a lot of these places will be based up in the north of England, maybe over in Ireland, some parts of central belt of Scotland, northwest of England. As you can see them on the map, each blue dot represents a sizable manufacturing location, and they are all spread geographically all around the UK. It employs nearly 3 million people. As you can see, imagine quite a few of those have been furloughed currently with the COVID piece, and 44% of our total UK exports come from this manufacturing sector. 66% of all the research and development the UK spends is into this sector. So it's a colossal part of our business and the economy as a whole for the United Kingdom. So that's a bit about DHL and the manufacturing logistics that I'm responsible for. I'll try and give you a few themes here that are impacting the logistics and industry globally. It may be of interest. Of course, one of these added to this will be the COVID scenario, but this is just a good example about the things that are happening to logistics around the world. We see as an organisation as four key drivers, and you can see them there: globalisation, e-com, digitalisation, and sustainability. So the globalisation piece, I'm going to read all the words out in there, but key stat for me there is that 66% of the global economy are concentrated around 3 economic clusters. So North America, free trade, Europe and China. And as we can see, where the likes of COVID impact on the global economy, that really has impact across on a global scale. But from a logistics supply chain perspective, that's a key stat for us about where activity happens around the world. 56% of the world trade in goods consists of intermediate products. So that is something that is then made to then go and produce something else. So a good example of that would be a car seat. So a car seat is made not as a finished item, it's made as a car seat to then go into a car and produce else and maybe finally fitted in somewhere else around the world. So you often see the seats in cars, for example, might be made in Italy or China or something like that, then they're shipped around the world to be finally assembled at a location. And again, that's great from a logistics perspective to support and move all those items. E-com, huge driver of parcel volume in the last year. The last mile services, the better, how we better serve customer demands, e-com's a critical part for every business nowadays, more so in the last 2 months, certainly in the UK, with the COVID impact and everybody at home and self-isolations, etc. The growth of e-commerce is colossal. Cross-border e-commerce as well. Again, we've seen a lot more. Go back 5 years ago, very little would move direct to a customer outside of the country border, and we're seeing this expanding at a rate of approximately 25% a year. So you order something in the UK as a customer, it may come from China, it may come from France or Germany or something like that, but that's all supported by a logistics network. And again, an overall 11% growth in e-com expected by 2022. I would expect that to grow massively more with the new norm. So as everybody gets used to living and working with COVID, which will be with us for a number of years, that growth in e-com will grow significantly and will expand beyond the traditional sectors that we've seen the growth historically. And again, on the e-com, traditionally half the market has been swallowed up by the giants Amazon, Alibaba, JD.com, etc. So there is a small number of colossal players in the global marketplace, all of which need a strong logistics arm to help them grow and serve the customers. Digitalisation, again, speed of digitalisation and availability of what we call big data is massive. So consumers' buying habits, data to enable you to make your operations more efficient, speed of activity of analysing data and amalgamating that from a global footprint is colossal. So these are all big things that have a massive impact into supply chains. Where we see in our logistics centres, start at the bottom there, 63% believe robotics, most important physical technology in supply chain applications. So many of my sites, I'm putting robots into robot picking, robot put away in the warehouse. Lots of, we call it the robotic process associated with the RPA work, which is basically where you have a lot of offices of people keying data in. It's all done by sort of robots behind the scenes now to improve the availability of data and speed that data churn. So that's a big factor for us. And sustainability, and this one I think we've seen a lot more of this now as well. And this is where the sustainability part, the environmental credentials of a business, and how from an organisation that the organisation looks after its employees beyond coming to work. And the stats in there that 4 out of 5 employees who volunteer to do things outside of work through work are more satisfied with the job, and 92% felt more motivated. And this is a trick for me here, our key piece about how you get the very best out of all the people that work in your area. 12,000 people work in my sector, and I really push the whole sustainability agenda, environmental agenda. We send a lot of our teams out volunteering at schools and local associations, and really to help their connection with the local environment and their local workplace. It's really important. So there's some themes that are impacting the logistics industry. Now COVID, right? So this is obviously new for everybody, isn't it? And there's a few slides about how DHL as a business we're approaching COVID, the implications this has got on a global logistics company, how we're addressing it, the recovery, and then this thing called a new normal, and about how we reassess how we get our people back into work. As I say, 12,000 people in my area alone, about 6,000 of those have been off on furlough because their factories or their operations have closed down. But how we get those 6,000 people back into work really quickly is critical for them and their well-being, as well as the economy as a whole, and get the GDP moving again as a country. Couple of pictures there. So the bottom left-hand side on my screen, hope it's so on yours, that's my boss, Jose Nava. So he's the CEO of DHL in the UK, and probably not widely known, but he does spend his time with Mr. Johnson at number 10, and I think he enjoyed a call with him on the weekend, and he got a very nice quote on CNN about how he's got loads of great ideas helping. But as an industry, as DHL as a company, we're of that sufficient size and scale that the likes of our CEO does have influence. and our voices are heard in the industry, which is really important for us. So we're all dead pleased for Jose. Okay, so the impact on DHL, I mean, the COVID pause, I'll read all the words out here, has a massive impact on everybody's life, at home, at sports, outside of work, doing your social time, and the businesses that we work are absolutely no exception. And I think this is the very first time that globally something has hit us right across the globe in a very rapid period of time. DHL-wise, I know we're confident DPDHL will weather the storm. We've just released our Q1 performance this morning, actually. The bottom right-hand side there is Frank Appel, our global group CEO. And his statement he's put in the press release this morning. And what really helps DHL weather these sort of storms is our broad geographic setup, so the 220 countries we operate in, and a comprehensive portfolio. So we have lots of different types of businesses supporting different industries across the globe. It does make us more resilient than a lot of other companies in our sector, and indeed a lot of other companies in different sectors. So we're seeing in the UK, we've seen all aspects of our operations have been affected. Some, the volume's gone up, so we do a lot of work with our food retail supermarkets, so Tesco, Sainsbury's, Morrison's. A lot of their volume is delivered by DHL on a weekly basis, so they're seeing really busy volumes. Life sciences and healthcare operations, again, as the sort of research and development and the requirement for PPE around the NHS and setting up the new hospitals. So the new hospitals have been set up, they've all been supplied and set up by DHL. They've grown significantly. We'll talk a little about the ventilator challenge program, which I've been involved in. And again, that's an area where we've seen a high workload. But on the flip side, a lot is much lower as well. So the manufacturing setup, which is the predominant core of my business unit, is a lot of that has been temporarily closed, so paused through to COVID. So Jaguar Land Rover, whom we work with, Aston Martin, Sunseeker, Bombardier Train, JCB, Caterpillar, they've all had pauses in their production, which has meant that there's no work and no parts that will be moving around. So having a broad, comprehensive portfolio, lots of different areas, helps you be more resilient to challenges such as this. And again, the importance of having a good governance from a financial perspective make a massive difference as you go into these and how it helps organisations weather storms. The ones that you may see in the news and the papers who are struggling, whilst we don't know, we can't comment about individual ones, of course, they're probably the ones who were struggling before they went into this, and that makes it difficult for them, even more difficult when these challenges happen. Okay, yes, we talked about there. So operations are paused, that close offices, factories. Talked about the furlough. We've set up the ventilator challenge. I've got a case study I'll be able to send out and we'll circulate around for you. But this is where very briefly the challenge that we've seen in the news and the press about the number of ventilators in hospitals, and that was a critical resource to helping fight the COVID battle. DHL were asked by the Department for Health, along with ourselves, Rolls-Royce, McLaren, Ford, and a couple of other organisations to set up a consortium to build 35,000 ventilators from scratch, based on a patented model that Penlon and Smiths already had. Companies that already designed a ventilator and passed all the MHRA tests as you would need to do for medical equipment. And we set ourselves a challenge up to build 35,000 ventilators in 6 weeks. Now, normally, businesses setting this type of stuff up would take months to set their supply chain up, but we've set a supply chain up out of one of my facilities within 48 hours. We're now up to collected about 8 million parts from around the world, bringing all those parts into a location, and we put them into what we call a manufacturing kit. So if you imagine a piece of flat-back furniture, a set of drawers will have maybe 100 parts in it. All those parts come from a different factory around the world somewhere. The logistics job is to go out and get all those parts, put them in a bag, nice and easy, and then pass them into the manufacturing teams, and we'll build that ventilator into a set standard. And that's the first supply chain that's been opened in the UK, adhering to the new social distancing, and since COVID has been a factor for us all, and it's making a massive difference to individual lives. And to such an extent, the team who were doing this, now I didn't have to ask anybody to do this. We came out and said, look, we've got a ventilator challenge. I'm going to need a couple of 100 people to come and help me set this up. With my team, every one of those 200 volunteered, because they all know they're doing something that matters significantly out into the to the wider UK population, and it could be their parents, their grandparents, their friends who have the benefit of a ventilator that the DHL have helped get to hospitals. And it's things like this that make a big difference to me, and really matter to me from as a managing director in our company. So there's a good case study we can share with us, certainly. In terms of how we manage in things like the COVID situation, so you may have read and heard about things called business continuity plans, or BCPs, but these are fundamental building blocks for how you manage through a crisis such as this. So the BCPs, and most big organisations, there'll be a requirement around your company's governance to have a proper business continuity plan that's ready to jump into action as and when a crisis occurs. And there can be any sorts of crises, from things like a global pandemic, wars, famines, big road closures, terrorist attacks, anything like that can constitute a crisis in that you would need to kick into a BCP. And we've a set crisis management hierarchy that is underpinning our organisation. Everybody's properly trained on it, and every year that we go through and reassess the plan. So whenever there is a problem, everyone knows what they're supposed to be doing, and you jump straight into your crisis management boards. So each area, so the manufacturing logistics sector, which I run, we have a crisis management team. We meet at 8 o'clock every morning, and then the day after that, all the shutdown was set. Our crisis management team sort of jumped straight into action. 8 a.m. a session with my team, reporting into the UK board around about 11 o'clock in the morning, the global DHL board about 2 in the afternoon, and then the overall Frank Appel's global board by that evening. So this was happening all through our organisation globally at the same time in the same process. So very easy escalation of issues and questions that we may have, and a communication back the other way of policy and answers. And it may sound really simple, but the importance of having that real clear governance that everybody understands, everybody knows, and knows how it will work, and knows their part to play in it is critical for managing through a crisis such as this. We've got a phased approach, 3 phases in this particular crisis. And again, this is how we manage a risk and challenge to our company, and the impacts we have on our people. Most important for me is our people. Second is around our shareholders, so the people who own shares in our company, and want to make sure that money's been looked after properly, and our customers who are entrusting us with their supply chains. So our phase 1, which really lasted probably through March 20 to early April, we called it our phase 1 containment. That was our morning calls, 8 o'clock daily leadership calls, and it fed into the overall crisis business continuity plans. So it was all about the things that you need to do to make sure we're protecting our people from their safety, job security, and very clear communication for thousands of people who were really worried about what it means for them, for the families. Is the job safe? Are they going to get paid next week? All of those things that really make, which is really important to individuals. If you imagine that the Maslow's hierarchy needs, that bottom box about, have I got some shelter? Am I paying my rent? Am I paying my mortgage this week? Can I eat? Am my family safe? That is the most important parts of that pyramid. Second bit is around protecting our company. Making sure that our investors are well looked after. We're not losing the company's money. We're making sure that our customers are working closely with our customers to support their needs. But the key principles you can see on the right there is clear, regular communication, set points and structures to discuss issues and address problems, enable home working. It's really important for us. Again, myself, we've been home working now for about 8 weeks, and and our company's still going. In fact, some may say it's probably more efficient now that we're not all in the offices, but that's another debate. Working collaboratively with our customers and ourselves to get good decisions, quick decision making. And the bit around protecting the companies is cash is king. So times like this, it's critical that you get your bills paid. So often organisations they work with we may do activity for a month, say do activity in January, we'll get paid in February for that. When other companies are struggling, you want to make sure that they're paying the bills, and that's how we protect our company. So a lot of the work we've spent in the containment phase and protecting our company is making sure cash is king and we get the money in that's due to us. And important, you will all be far too young to remember this reference, but Captain Manor in Dad's Army, big one there, don't panic. And the important piece is the teams, all of the team in the UK and in my sector are looking to me and my leadership team to be calm in the crisis, to make sure we're approaching this methodically and making very clear decisions and communicating effectively, and not to panic. Panic, Captain Manor. Second there, so the restart phase. This is where we're into now, really, actually. A lot of our manufacturing sites are now opening back up again. So phase 2 is all about how the standard of best practice of how we open operations back again, protecting company people and customers. Safety of our people is absolutely paramount. So the reason why a lot of the manufacturing sites in the UK closed down due to COVID, so many of our operations stayed open, many closed down. The reason why the ones that closed down did is predominantly because of social distance working. So in a factory, many jobs require two-man jobs. So if you imagine putting the dashboard in a car, that usually takes two people, one on either side, to lift the dashboard and then click it into place. So those sort of jobs couldn't be undertaken with the 2-metre social distancing, which is why a lot of the factories had to close while we're working it through. So the importance of then reopening back up again, safety of people is critical for me, and that's a red line we will not bend when I do with our discussion with our customers. Safety is absolutely paramount. And the human side of it is really important as well. And people's experiences during the stay-at-home time will be massively different. So we'll have some people who've lost loved ones in the family, in the house. Some people will have, known people, the neighbours and stuff like that. Will be a real challenge. Some people will have underlying health issues and think, I really don't want to come back to work. I'm worried about it. And then there'll be others as well who've just been, in the garden and it's completely bypassed them and not impacted outside of, going to go down the pub with the mates kind of thing. So everyone's story will be different when we come back to work. And bear in mind, some of these individuals have been away from work for sort of 8, 9, 10 weeks. That's a very long period of time, probably the longest. Many of those individuals will have been away from work in their whole lives. So bringing them back in is going to be really, how we bring them back is really important. Building confidence, so making sure people are confident about coming back to work and understanding the new normal ways of working. So it's all about how do we come back into work to try and do the activity and the tasks that we were doing before COVID, but understanding that there's probably some new restrictions and new rules about how we do those. And getting industry back moving again. And this is a big push from the government, I think, in the next 3 months, is very safely, not wanting a second spike in COVID, but we have got to get our economy moving again. And that starts by people coming back into work again, even if it's on a small scale, but get back into that mindset that we leave the house every day, we go to work, and we grow our country again as a principle. And the final part in the restart is how do we prepare to realign and right-size our company? So we do know as well, many of the industries we'll be working in probably won't be as buoyant as they were at the end, after COVID, as they were at the start. So a good example will be the airlines. So air traffic around the globe is likely to reduce. We've seen it already. There's a lot of announcements of BA and EasyJet have announced a lot of redundancies. How does that impact supply chain? Well, we do quite a bit of work in one of our sectors with the airlines. But from a manufacturing perspective, many of our customers are Airbus, or the suppliers that supply into Airbus. So if less people are flying around the world, we're going to need less aeroplanes, and then the volumes in the supply that provides the aircraft or the parts of the aircraft will reduce. So it may mean that we need to relook at our business and say, are we going to need as many people as assets as warehouses post-COVID as we did pre-COVID? And And these are the big decisions that we need to make in this restart phase, which is we're on with today. And that's an example about we've taken from our Jaguar Land Rover site, which have all come back to work this week. So we've briefed everybody about the site rules, so social distancing, hand washing, kitchen face, your nose. If you don't have a tissue, you just leave. Use bits and pieces, keep 2 meters apart, and checklists that the site team will do on a day-to-day basis around adherence. So these are all things that no one ever had to talk about before at work. Both carrying out the tasks that you do on a normal day-to-day basis. And this is what we call the new norms. It's examples such as this that'll be a big impact for all of industry as they're coming back into work for those who have been closed down. And the third phase, phase 3, is a revisit and growth. So what is the impact of the new normal? What's the impact on our sectors, the GDP, our customers? What's going to happen to our competition, and how will we emerge as a company from COVID even stronger than we went in? And how we approach that is very much assessing the industry and what do we believe is going to change the results. What's going to be the different consumer demands that have on businesses? As we said earlier, I expect a bigger increase in e-com. That's going to be there to stay now, and probably into wider markets than traditional. And we'll have a view as a business. I'm already doing that with my team now of the broad portfolio of business that I have in my area. Which sectors should we not be in anymore? Which ones do we see are going to grow? Which ones do we see are going to decline? And where should we put our resources? And the big question for me in all of this is who's not going to survive. So there is no way an economy can go through this through 3, 6, 9, 12 months and not have businesses, whether they be competitors to DHL or whether they be customers of DHL or general customers or general businesses across the board. There's no way that not everybody will survive all of this. Some people will prosper, and the belief in there is that the companies who will generally prosper will be ones who have got into COVID with the most established and stable platform, which DHL will set ourselves as one of those. Those who've gone in there with probably some difficulties in their business will probably struggle as a result of that. But it's important now that we are always looking at the market and the industries, and where DHL should play in that is a key part. So they're the sort of 3 phases that we look at as we got into the COVID piece. So the containment is all about our people, making sure people are safe, customers are safe, and our investors are. We get the money back into the company. How we restart, we give confidence to our teams about restarting back again if they've been on shutdown. And then the revisit piece about actually, let's have a little look about our strategy, where we're trying to grow a business, and how do we emerge through from COVID a lot stronger place than we started as a principle. So I think that's a summary from myself. Again, conscious it's difficult on these sort of presentations when we're just listening to me talk through it. As I say, I'm more than happy to come and spend some time if it helps anybody. Hopefully I'll give you a bit of an introduction to myself and the group, a bit around logistics. We've got that logistics challenge. Again, we'll have a good prize for anyone who gets the right answer for there, and work out how long it takes to get the ship from one side of the Pacific to the other, and what did those founder members of DHL do to try and speed up the travel time. Talked a bit about UK manufacturing logistics, the area that I'm responsible for. Talked about themes facing logistics, and we talked about COVID-19 and the approach DHL have taken. And I think that opens up to some Q&A. So hopefully you've all found this session useful. I think, I don't know what we're doing now. Gordon, I'll probably pass to you for some Q&A.
Thank you, Mike. If you could, that's it. I'll take your presentation off the screen. That's perfect. Thank you very much. So we've got a range of questions for you, Mike. That was a brilliant insight, by the way, and thank you very much. It's great to see links to Maslow's hierarchy of needs and contingency plans. Lots of my business students will be rather excited at this very point. Well, hopefully. Looking at the questions, I think most of these have come from my business students. So thank you very much for that. We haven't had an answer to your question at the moment. I'm sure they're still calculating that. So we'll hopefully be able to email that over to you maybe after the talk.
Yeah.
So I've got a couple of.
We'll certainly do the prize if we're allowed to do it from a stone perspective. The nearest answer and the best answer of a solution for logistics. I'm sure we'll better do a job placement with me in one of the DHL facilities.
Well, that's a huge incentive and leads directly into one of the questions, which is really good. So, first question, just a question about degrees, really. If I wanted to progress to a senior manager at DHL, are there some degrees that would help more than others? I think this is on the back of you commenting that you studied a logistics degree.
Yeah, so I did. I mean, this is going back a few years now, but I did a specific transport logistics degree. At the time, I think there were only about 4 or 5 universities in the UK that did it. I didn't really know much about logistics beforehand as well. So it was my uncle actually worked for Tesco. He ran a site in the northwest of Tesco, and he introduced me to logistics as an industry. So logistics degrees, as they were then, I'm sure they are very similar now. Very predominantly business related, so lots around economics, around the principles of like Maslow's hierarchy. All of that sort of stuff is really important in any sort of degree. So good foundations of an academic piece is key. I always think moving on from into taking from a degree into work life, the key part for me has always been about people and being able to interact with people. We talk about leading people, coaching people, but those who can make an interaction with and a connection with people. DHL is a people organisation. It's people at the heart of everything we do, and those who are the most successful are the ones who can translate that academic background into whether it be a boardroom or into the driver's room with all the drivers or something like that. And they're the key part. So good degrees for me today. I would always say anything around any business sort of degree is really important. Psychology type stuff, I don't think I think that'd be pretty good as well. So anything that relates to people would be a good point for me.
Fab, thank you. So the next 2 questions I'll put into one. So this is about opportunities and risks to DHL. So over the next 5 to 10 years, good luck with that one, since the COVID-19 took us all by surprise. Over the next 5 to 10 years, what do you think the biggest opportunities for growth and possibly the biggest risks might be?
Yeah, with that, I think the 2 pieces, biggest area of growth is e-com globally. So that growth around people moving away from having or their e-com being provided in their country of origin, for a better word, I think that's changing. One of the I wonder if I can announce the thing. I can't yet now. NDA, but we just signed up with a new customer for their global aftermarket for their product. So it looks like a JCB, but it's not a JCB. So we work out who it is. But their facility we're putting up into in the Midlands in the UK, and currently they do a 5-day lead time anywhere around the world. So in the UK, a piece of equipment breaks down in the US, say, and all the parts are held in a chunk of the parts are held in the UK, and a chunk are held in country in little small stockholding locations. If it's not supplied from the small stockholding location, that will come from the UK base, and it takes 5 days. So that piece of equipment will be off the road or be out of the construction facility for 5 days, and the knock-on effect on the buildings and all that sort of stuff is colossal. So the customer we discussed and set up with was putting a new facility right next to East Midlands Airport. So that's one of our DHL hub airports, and we can do, would you believe it, around the world next day service, anywhere around the world.
Unbelievable.
So that from a growth potential, so from a customer service perspective, is massive. So 4 days less of lead time.
Yeah.
But these companies would never have 4 days. They would never sort of survive or allow a vehicle to be broken down for 5 days. So they'll put loads more stock in inventory. So the saving in inventory is massive by having it in a location from that perspective. So biggest growth opportunities, globalization, e-commerce, and to be able to connect it to a connected supply chain. DHL are the only logistics company that can connect every dot in a supply chain rather than having to work with other parties.
Okay.
Those are the biggest areas. Biggest risks, it's got to say for me, people like, I would say like Amazon. So Amazon are what a platform. if only all of us had come up with that Amazon idea. What a great idea that would have been. But they've got a fulfillment centres, their ability to interact with customers globally, and they've got their own sort of global logistics network now from the e-com platform. And whilst DHL will look to expand our platform, I'm sure the Amazon guys will look to do theirs as well. So,
of course,
the threats for DHL will be people more like and as Amazon as opposed to another logistics company.
Okay. So this is a geography question. And so how did DHL plan to reduce their carbon emission? You've just mentioned this same day or one day delivery globally. How does that impact on your carbon emission targets?
Yeah, so our carbon emissions by 2050 to be carbon neutral. So we're at the halfway stage, and we're ahead of a halfway target. Each of our areas, we have we talked about probably earlier. I talked about certified supply chain specialists to our employees. We have something as well called our certified Go Green specialists, which are our environmental sort of experts. In my sector, I've got 500 of those. So these are people who have a normal job, and on top of that, they become our Go Green specialists. And the focus in there is all about how we move away from improving vehicle fills to take trucks and lorries off the road, reducing the size of our warehouses, reducing the number of people that are working in them, because again, that's a green factor. Cars, I drive an electric car, so a lot of my team now are moving into electric cars as well as a means of commuting rather than sort of relying on fossil fuels, and big carbon offsets as well. So we're just before COVID, so in February, I think we're up in Derby. I think we planted about 50,000 trees or something in an area. But our principle about is our any carbon we set. So we do our carbon reporting. The objective is to zero carbon emissions, but where we can't do zero emissions, we offset every single point of it.
All right, fantastic, thank you. This is actually a question from me. Your degree apprenticeship, I think it's about £18,000 a year. I just had a quick look at it. So, which is, a degree and a job. I'm a big fan of apprenticeships.
Yeah.
So, if a student was to take a degree apprenticeship at DHL, would they be able to progress as far as someone that has a degree from a Russell Group university?
Personal view, that's the view of Mike Bristow, not the view of DHL or anything else, is people who would come into our organisation through an apprenticeship route, we'll give them a degree. By the time they finish on the 4 years, they'll have had 4 years work experience. They will have some pretty plum jobs in there as well as they're learning their experience. They won't come out with as much debt, and they will go on quicker than people who've gone through university. Which university you go to makes no difference, in my personal opinion.
Excellent, thank you. I'm glad you said that, by the way. So thank you very much, Mike. Right, okay.
We take on, I think I had last year 12, I think from memory, degree apprentices. One of the sessions I look forward to the most through the year, sounds a bit, but this is one of my values in this, but is when we have the parents coming in, and the degree apprentices present back to their parents what they've been doing at work.
Yeah.
And there's not a dry eye in the house because they're seeing their children from acorns into big oaks.
Excellent, thank you. So something more about the current economic climate. So recently the retail sector has rapidly declined. If this trend continues, how would this impact DHL? This is definitely from a business student, e.g. less business to business and more business to consumer. You sort of touched on that with one of the threats from Amazon.
Yeah, definitely. So the rise in e-com. So let's take some good examples where I think that in food retail will not change that much. So people go to supermarkets, go to shops for food. Yes, there's lots of home delivery on that side, but less change, I would say. The supermarkets don't make as much money on a home delivery as they do on an in-store delivery. And it's a life necessity that people have to buy and eat and stuff. So I think food retail is probably on one side. Fashion retail and disposable income retail, I think, is an area massively ripe for e-com growth. And then you'll get businesses which rely on, these are the shops that I hate going into personally. So places like Primark, where else is there? TK, anything like that, where you've got to fight your way into the shop, fight up and down every aisle, looking for stuff in the on the clothes rack. I think nothing worse than that personally. But lots of people's business models are set on that, and the new norm of social distancing and shopping habits are going to have to change. So Primark, be really interesting. They'll be a good one to watch what happens with that as an organisation. So they very proudly do not do any e-com. So that's not our model. Our model is people walking around shops, having a right good rummage for stuff, and coming up with a load of things you didn't know you needed. They're not going to be able to do that anymore. The social distancing is here to stay for certainly the next cycle of time. So, businesses that rely on big footfall into the shops and walking around as well, like that, they're the ones that I think will probably see the biggest challenge. And then the supply chain partners with them. So more development into the direct to customer sales from a retail perspective. But I'd say I keep an eye on Primark. Could be an interesting case to keep an eye on about how they now try and change to support an e-com platform that they've always said they would never do. Yes. They're lucky; they're supported by their partner, their owner, British Food Group, British Food Group, I think. They're lucky; they've got quite deep pockets. Otherwise, they'd be in real trouble.
Well, this week's prep for my lower sixth business students are looking at the opportunity cost for Primark of not going into e-commerce. So actually,
there we go then.
Good timing. Thank you very much. So we've got one on. Someone's been looking at your internships on your website, which they say internships for students at university. Great. How would a lower sixth student apply for work experience? Probably not this summer, but how would they apply for work experience?
We have a set program. I'll be able to send you a link through to
Thank you.
To do. But again, I'm more happy for the group that I'm here today that progress through there. But I'll include my email on there and stuff. So any direct responses into me, I'm sure we'll get to sort something out in the local area.
Good, thank you. And the last question we've got here, some of this you've already answered, so I'll cut some of it out. So it's about automation in the supply chain. Their question originally was, where are we going to see this first? But it's already happening, so that's covered already. So when are we going to see flying deliveries? We keep seeing these little helicopter delivery trucks going about on TV. When are we going to start seeing them?
Yeah. I'll never let the truth get in the way of a good story. I think a good description. So I can share a couple of films about. So we have our delivery copters, and we're now on about the 4th or 5th generation. So I think the inaugural flight for one went over the Rhine in Germany, and then it was used to sort of deliver out into some of the islands on the sort of near Denmark, so relatively successfully. Some of the hard to reach areas in the Alps, relatively successfully, and we've actually used. There's one in Africa that's been really good for delivery of life sciences and healthcare into very remote parts of the globe. But the practical uses for things like drones, again, personal opinion, is probably in the 0.000000001% of things that move around the globe. And the day when everyone's Christmas Amazon deliveries are delivered by a drone, I'm not being funny, but our street at Christmas, you have 10 Mercedes Sprinter vans mooching up and down it most days. If that was all delivered by drones, there would be millions of them. Yeah. So it'll not happen in our lifetime, will be my view. That said, I'm sure in 5 years' time, so this bloke came on and said that there'll be loads of them flying around. But so things like drones are marginal. So that is I always sort of say is a vanity type project, I would call it. So if somebody wants to have a drone, but so look, there's our drone for deliveries. The bigger impacts I would say are on all around data. So WMS systems, warehouse management systems, labour management systems, anything that can control and interpret data to make your operation more efficient is massively valuable, and that's a key piece of digitalisation. Handhelds, I've got one downstairs. I could have brought up actually, but we're handheld computers that will be on pickers, arms will tell them where to go and get the next pick or location from in the warehouses. Google Glasses, the augmented reality. So the glasses on it tell them where to pick, and that's certainly useful if there's you're picking from sort of a big pick face with lots of different areas. It will tell you which one to do. They're useful. Auto-guided vehicles, so anywhere that you've got a trailer that's coming into a warehouse to be ticked, well, doesn't need a bloke to do that, a robot can do it. Oh, as if by magic, my assistant, there we go, there's one. So set on each of his hands, and then that'll give the day's tasks and all their activity through the day. So they're all really useful. So the auto-guided vehicles, taking the man out from the truck, again, we use those quite substantially, and the same for shunters around the yard as well. So auto-guided shunters. So those type of areas. Locust picking robots. So anything that's a repetitive picking task that you can get a robot to do. Really useful. But the key bit for digitalization and automation, massively for me, is it's got to start on a problem definition. So what is it you're trying to fix? What is the problem with a human being doing it? Do they get it wrong? Are they not quick enough? Do you have to keep training them? Do they keep leaving? What problem are you trying to fix by looking for some technology? And if you can keep it centered on fixing a problem, 9 times out of 10 it'll work. If you've gone out and seen in a magazine, oh look, so and so using this particular piece of technology, fear of missing out, we need to have that as well. Guarantee there'll be a waste of money.
Excellent. Thank you for that insight. It's wonderful. Right, so that's it for the questions. You'll be glad to hear.
Okay.
So that's been absolutely enlightening. Thank you very much. And for someone who's got an MBA in retailing with a logistics unit, I remember now with fondness my logistics unit. So thank you very much, Mike. I really enjoyed that. Lots of people will watch this after the fact as well, which would be great. So this is going on the school website where people will be able to access this for the foreseeable future. And I'm sure that our head of careers will refer to this in future advice and guidance with the students. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks for your time. As I say, that more than happy to come in face to face when we're all allowed outside our houses, and when some sort of normality comes back again for any further comments. I will look through the questions. I can see quite a few on there, and I'll make sure we get an answer to all of those if that would help.
Great, thank you very much. Great, I'm going to end it now, Mike. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye.